What's up guys, this is Void of Dust Gaming, your channel for fresh Arena of Valor content. And since this hero is actually really strong quite now, and she always has been, I thought about doing something which I would call a beginner's guide, and I'm doing this today for Chi. Chi is an outstanding warrior who's able to brawl her opponents down in the solo lane. She's quite capable to do stuff on the jungle lane as well, but we're focusing on the solo lane in this video today. And first of all, I want to check the hero with you. This video, as I said, is especially for beginners, so if you have already been playing Chi, there might not be that much to know about her, but I think for beginners it might be quite valuable because this champion is actually so much fun to play, and I really want to focus on that. So let's talk about Chi and her abilities quite briefly. Her passive, it's called Protection Aura. Every single time she uses one of her skills up to 3 stacks, you are going to increase her armor by 30, and you will get +4 levels for 5 seconds. When she hits an enemy, she attacks twice, and she is going to restore some of her life, which is actually a super powerful passive. On the one hand, you're going to be a little bit tougher, and on the other hand, you're going to deal more damage while getting some of your HP back. While doing so, you can store that up to 4 times, and you're going to see that in the upcoming video, how fast you're going to get your life back. So this is really powerful, quite a good skill, and a lot of heroes are going to take health reduction against you with the Death Curse, for example, or the Tomb of the Reaper, because this is actually really good. Her first ability is something that I really like. She is going to dash, so you've got a dash, and this dash is actually going through obstacles or terrain, which means that you can just fling through any mountain or something like that if you are going to take out some of those minions in the jungle. That makes her a really viable jungler as well. She dashes forward, dealing more damage, and she sends enemy knocking up. So she's got a quite nice crowd control here. Basically, it's just something that you like to use to get the initial attack. You can engage with that, you can just disengage with that as well. So this is actually a skill that she can use rather defensively if she dares. And yeah, it's something that you would like on a champion as Chi, because that just means that you can enter the fights whenever you want. On her second ability, she's called Mountain Shaker. She attacks her target continuously. So this is going to be some kind of light bulb or some kind of power bubble that she's going to create right in front of her. And while you're doing so, you are reducing the target's armor. So you should always do that right at the start of a fight, because then afterwards you're going to have an easier time to fight against targets. And her final attack also reduces the target's movement by 50% for 1 second. So it's quite important to get into a position where you can tell that you're going to hit every single one of these. It takes a little bit of practice, but if you master it, it's going to be quite powerful, because that just means that you will eventually be able to follow up with your first skill afterwards, and this is going to make Chi even more powerful. Talking about power, Brawler, it's quite a long text. The most important thing what you guys need to know is she's actually pushing someone right back, and this push is super powerful. You are going to deal additional damage, and 15% of targets lost HP. That's actually something that you have to deal with if you are the opponent. And if you hit an enemy, or if the enemy hits an obstacle or some terrain feature, he or she is going to get additional damage and is also stunned for 1.5 seconds. So you've got a really hard CC spell here. And the cool thing about that is that this is going to be recastable. So if you are managing to get someone right into a obstacle, you can basically immediately use it again. Of course, you should always beware of the fact that they are stunned, so you need to wait a little bit and then you can stun them again. And with one of the recent updates, this has just been some kind of like unlocked. So usually you needed to send them into the obstacle, and then afterwards your skill was reactivated for the second time. This time I think you are going to have it after 3 seconds again, so you don't even need to hit something into an obstacle. It's still going to rework again, and you're still dealing the additional damage. So she is a really powerful hero at this state of the game, and I want to show you my armory with her, because that might be something that you guys are actually interested in. So if you take one brief moment, and this is not the right build, I'm using this set as a default. No, I'm using this one. I'm using this one as a default, but I'm going to change the Clave Sancti as this is against the Death Curse, because there are a lot of heroes running around with health regeneration, so we want to keep it as low as possible, and this is somehow to be the build. So it's rather attack damage focused, and because of that we're going to mitigate it. In the Arcana section, I'm using my AD build, my ED tank build, and as you can see, we are getting around 800 HP in addition to the stuff that we get normally. That is from 10 times Indomitable with 10 times or 10% attack speed, which is actually quite nice. We've got Benevolence in here, and we've got some Skewer because we want to pierce those armors quite niftily, and it works really fine with this build. If we're changing the hero here to Resolve Chi, oh my god, the game is loading a little bit low. We've got Lockheim here with Death Subdual. It's just one of the best enchantments that you can just use with her. You are dealing additional damage to one single target. We've got Devouring here and Deadly Claw to fuel up our damage even further, get some sustain, and then we've got Enhanced Restore as well as the Gunsling here to boost our stats even further. So this is the build, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy today's gameplay, because Chi is such a good character to play right now. She's so much fun, and I hope you guys are going to have that in the video transported as well. So let's go. Alright guys, so after all this introduction about builds and the skills of Chi, we are talking now about actual gameplay. It's the time to really put her into the test and see how good she is right now, and explain some of the things that she is able to do. I'm using my physical ability number 2 here as my first skill, because this is your wave management tool. This is something, as we get to know from what I've been talking about early on in the skill description, that is going to inflict most of the damage that Shield is actually able to do. And with the combination of her as one combined, she's able to dish out a tremendous amount of damage. And we are facing Arduin here on the solo lane. We're talking about the team composition in a few seconds, but this is something that I really want to highlight, because as some of you might know, Arduin is actually one of the solo laners that I like to play most on this position. Therefore, I've got, I would say, in the terms of the experience that I have with all the heroes, most of the knowledge on this hero. I've been playing Arduin for quite long, and I've been able to get really nice results with him, and therefore I knew what I was going against. And this is something that's really important, especially for beginners, to know what the enemies that you are facing are capable of doing. Therefore, I knew, for example, right now, with Arduin being a little bit low as well as Butterfly being full life, we have no chance of extending here, trying to find out what they're about to do. So they killed the Spirit Sentinel, but this is the time where you need to hold back. And as you can see now, everyone is making a push towards us, and this is the first time that we can actually see some fighting here. First blood for our team here, and now it's our turn to get Arduin with the first kill on our respective meter. That was actually not that difficult, because there was so much crowd damage going on that we just needed to farm him, and as you can see, my team was doing a really good push. As I said before, the passive is quite important on her. It's the bread and butter, where you really get the upper hand in fights, because you're going to have these nice little bonuses, and therefore it's sometimes important to rather not use both of your abilities at the same time, but have a little pause in between. So you want to jump in, knock them up, and then you are going to use your passive, and then afterwards you can just spam your S2, not as I'm doing right now. I just want to inflict most damage, and therefore I'm using it quite immediately. But as you can see, Arduin is having a really hard time against me here in this respective scene. We are just shredding through his shield with ease. That said, Arduin is basically played about his shield. So what you're going to do with Arduin is you're going to proc your shield, and then afterwards you're going to apply all your abilities, and this is basically the stuff that is going to protect Arduin, but he doesn't stand a real chance against us, because our offensive power is just mitigating his defensive capabilities. As you can see, we're just like, the good thing is that we are reducing his armor, and that's something that comes in quite handy, especially against tanky characters such as Arduin. So I would say you are going best when you are playing Chi as a real warrior. You don't want to have a tank as Chi. I'm only using the tank runes because it gives us a little bit more survivability in the dueling phases, and of course in team fights it's also quite handy to have around 800 additional HP, because it just means that you can fight a little bit longer, because as she is a warrior and we are building her on damage, you will find yourself in situations where you are not having that much armor, not that much health, and therefore you need to compensate that a little bit, because the rest of your build basically screams full damage approach, and this is something that needs good positioning as well as some CC coming from your teammates, and you should always pay attention to what your team does. You are not the first to engage, but you can be a really good second wave cleaner, and when your team starts to soften the enemy up, it's your time to shine, because then you can just jump in and rain havoc on the enemies, because you got the tools. Like, you've got crazy amounts of damage. She's really good on dealing crazy amounts of damage in a really short time, and I think that is something where she excels. I'm buying Death Curse right now because, as you might know, Arduin has this little counter where he's going to get life back after his passive has procced, and we want to stop that in its tracks as early as possible. So Spur of Longinus was the item that I built for a little bit more sustain, and now that we got it, we can now start to work on Arduin, and I would say that's a really common thing to use, not the first item. I mean, if you find yourself in a position where you're going against a champion that's really living up the dream of getting HP by some passive or some skills or whatever it is, you might just want to buy Death Curse as your first item, and then afterwards you can go with all the damage and the kind of damage tanky stuff. But you should not wait too long to build this item, because it really helps your team to just get those health regenerations to a minimum, and that's what we were looking for in this respective scene or this respective gameplay. I thought about smashing Arduin straight into the obstacle here, and I made good use of my skills, because I was waiting a little bit longer in order to have that tower not be introducing himself to the fight anymore, not interrupting the fight, so that we can apply full damage without being punished for that. And I still get that minion, because the days from Alice was a little bit late. So now we're working on those enemies, and as you can see, we're still doing good against two, but if it would have been some more damage-oriented heroes, I would not have been able to dive in so bravely. I should have then hold back a little bit, and the fight would still have been quite nice. Joker is appearing, so I'm making a retreat, waiting for my team to fall back and regroup. And as we now have Raz with the support of Arya, we can now start looking for opportunities to get into the enemy. Death Curse has been built, and now we need the next item. Clive Sancti, that was because of the fight being so crazy. Of course, this is not the item you should use. You should then go into Omni Arms to get some of those lovely bonuses that you get from this well-rounded item, and then afterwards you can specialize onto something such as Fenris, for example. You might use Muramasa if there are a lot of tanky heroes on the enemy team, but I'm not going for a crit build here, and therefore I'm keeping it rather simple, and I think that's the best use. So we are second best in terms of the gold, 202 right now, so not a crazy score, but as you can see, we are fighting a game with 8 kills so far. The enemy team hasn't scored any. Of course, we don't want that to change, but sometimes the game just slips out of your hands, and then you need to adopt to the style. And there is one scene that is really questionable, and it's upcoming pretty soonish, and you guys will say, the fuck, what did you guys think here? And the answer is not really that much. So there is Joker. I just wanted to approach and be a little bit annoying. And as you can see, he's wasting, or not really wasting, but he's using his second skill, and therefore we do not stand a single chance of getting him. Even with the backup of Violet, we're not able to do anything against him because he's just running away, and I think that was a wise decision as the Joker. So now the team fight situation is coming up. The enemy team has already been down to little health in respective heroes. Arduin tries to counter us, but he's not really able to do so because his range is just so limited here, and we can just use the Slayer as our counterpiece in this advance. Clive Sancti has been built. Now I realize that this might not have been the smartest decision. Now I'm building Fenris, but of course Omni Arms should be your call to go, and everything should be alright. And this is the scene that I was talking about. We were so fed up with all this crazy stuff that we have been doing right now, and I was killed, and with a double kill. And Wukong and I were like, well, maybe that wasn't the wisest decision. As you can see, Wukong was already writing oops, and I just contributed to that by saying hey, because there was no meaning in doing that. I think we even slowed down the game for about 1 minute because of this overextending stuff that we've been using here. And now Arduin is able to kill Violet, so the enemy team is getting back a little bit into the game. But I think we still got the game quite well in our hands. As you can see, the only tower that has been broken down so far is the one on the bottom lane. So the enemy has 1 tower broken down, while we are sitting on 3 towers that are standing between us and the core. As there are 3 enemies, I mean, yes, my offensive capabilities are actually quite huge, but I'm not fighting 3 enemies at the same time. That's a no-brainer. We're not going to do that. Already solved the Clive Sancti, and now we're going in with the Fenris. Not going to deal with the Abyssal Dragon right now because I don't have any backup from my team, but as you can see, everything is kind of going towards the mid or upper lane, and you should always compensate on the minions in the jungle from the enemy if you've got the possibility to take that unharmed. That's something that most of the newer players kind of resist to do. Of course, it feels a little bit awkward to stand right into the jungle and do stuff there, but I think if you've got a situation like this where you are really pushing quite hard on different lanes, you've got every right in the game to just go in and kill things. And Alice is just a goner. Like, that goes so quickly that you can't even do anything against it. Now she was there and now she don't, and this just won us the game. And I think it shows how brutal she can be in a matchup against a true tank. Like, in my opinion, Arduin is one of the craziest tanks out there in the game. He's got great defensive capabilities, but as you are overcompensating, as you are bringing more damage to the table than he can actually withstand, you are good to go to make everything work that you want to do. And I think this game just shows how good she is right now, and you can even play her in the jungle. So I would say this is quite a versatile hero that a lot of players need to put on their list on the upper bracket, because she's actually really, really good. 8-6, I even opted for MVP here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get 2 or 3 points more, because then otherwise I would have been the MVP. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's beginners gameplay. I hope you guys could learn something from it. And yeah, I would be happy if you leave a comment or a thumbs up, and even a subscription would be pretty nice. So see you soon on Arena of Valor with Void of Dusk Gaming. Bye bye.